Have you ever wondered why businesses keep throwing massive budgets at, like, shiny new marketing technology, only to end up with just plummeting engagement and really frustrated customers?
Oh, it happens all the time.
Right. I mean, right now, your company's probably making around $44 for every single dollar you spend on email marketing.
Yeah, which is a staggering figure.
It's massive.
Yeah.
Like a 4,400% return on investment. And according to the research we are diving into today, that massive, unprecedented success is exactly what is destroying your long-term growth.
It's the ultimate paradox.
Exactly. Because when a channel is that cheap and that profitable on just a purely transactional level, it breeds, well, profound laziness.
Yeah, people get complacent.
So in this deep dive, we are exploring the foundational chapters of Cav Pei's highly acclaimed book, Holistic Email Marketing. We're going to unpack the foreword, the preface, the introduction, and the first few core chapters to really discover why technology alone will never save a failing campaign.
It just won't.
And our mission today is to help you throw off those outdated marketing practices that are just anchoring you in the past. We want to rethink the actual value of your email program and learn the 8 actionable principles that will bring true marketing back into your email marketing.
I love that framing because it really is a mindset shift that's needed. We are operating with, space-age technology, but we are running legacy dial-up era mentalities on top of it.
Silo mentalities, that's so true.
I mean, marketers assume that if they just license a new customer data platform or if they unlock a predictive send time optimization feature, that the tech will magically solve their engagement attrition.
Like it's a magic wand.
Exactly. But innovation in technology is just completely insufficient without innovation in your mindset and your strategy.
Okay, let's unpack this because Cav Pei brings up this really fascinating parable about the elephant and the rope.
Oh, the elephant? Yeah, this is a great analogy.
It really is. So the story goes that a baby elephant is tied to a small stake in the ground with a tiny rope. And as it grows into this massive, powerful adult, it has been so conditioned to believe that that tiny rope can still hold it, so it just never tries to break free.
It just accepts the limitation.
Right. It has the power to snap that rope in a second, but its mindset holds it back. And she relates this to how modern marketers are bound by these outdated 20th century tactics.
Yeah, they're held back by unquestioned norms, doing what we've always done just because we learned it on the job.
And fear, right?
Oh, absolutely. Fear is a massive driver. Fear of unsubscribes, fear of spam complaints, block lists.
You're terrified of doing something wrong.
Exactly. And because of that fear, they chase shiny objects, bad ideas that are masquerading as best practices.
But I have to push back a little here. If you're a marketer and you're hitting your basic KPIs, the boss is happy, the revenue's coming in, why shouldn't they just keep doing what they're doing? I mean, why fix an email program that technically isn't broken?
Well, it's the danger of the business as usual harbor. There's a great Mark Twain quote referenced in the text about sailing away from the safe harbor.
Catch the trade winds in your sales, that whole thing.
Exactly right. Because the harbor feels safe, but consumer expectations have drastically changed outside of that harbor.
So the environment shifted while you were anchored.
Spot on. And these fears, like the fear of unsubscribes, they dictate defensive marketing. You start sending generic, safe content just to avoid ruffling feathers.
And what does that actually do?
It ultimately degrades the channel over time. If you're just playing defense, your engagement slowly drops. The inbox providers notice that drop, and your deliverability takes a hit. Stagnation in this space isn't just treading water, it's a slow death.
So you're basically rotting your own foundation without realizing it.
Yeah, which means to break this conditioning, we have to look completely outside the traditional brand-centric models we've been taught.
Which brings us to the core philosophy of the whole book. The holistic philosophy.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really starts with Cav Pei's own background.
Right. She grew up in Sydney's northern beaches, yeah.
Yeah, and down there, it was very common to see holistic practitioners.
Like alternative medicine type stuff?
Sort of, yeah. The idea is that unlike a general practitioner who might just, treat a specific symptom like a cough or a rash, a holistic practitioner looks at the whole individual. They look at lifestyle, diet, stress to diagnose and treat the actual illness.
So they don't just treat the sneeze, they figure out why the immune system is weak.
Exactly. And she applies this directly to email marketing. Instead of looking at email in this fragmented, channel-oriented way like it's just a symptom, we must look at the entire whole customer journey.
But wait, how is that different from omnichannel? Because omnichannel is the massive buzzword right now. Everyone says we need an omnichannel approach.
It's a huge buzzword.
Yeah.
But the problem with concepts like omnichannel or multi-channel is that they are deeply, fundamentally brand-centric.
Brand-centric, meaning they're focused on the company, not the customer.
Yes. They just focus on making sure all the company's channels work together. It's about the brand shouting its message across email, social, SMS, and hoping they all align.
Oh, I see. It's like an orchestra. But every single musician in the band is just playing their own instrument as loudly as possible to get noticed.
That's a great way to picture it.
But holistic marketing, then, would be like having a conductor, someone who ensures the whole symphony is playing a cohesive piece, specifically for the audience sitting in the theater.
That is exactly it. The holistic approach is radically customer-centric. It doesn't just care about the email itself. It accounts for, the PPC ad that brought the user to the site in the first place.
The pre-email experience.
Yeah, and then the optimized landing page, the specific data capture form they filled out, and then the whole post-click experience after they get the email.
So practical takeaway here for you listening. Don't just design an email in a vacuum. You have to map out the exact journey your customer takes immediately before they receive the email and the precise landing page they see after they click.
If you don't do that, the email is useless, which ties into this idea of the three-legged table.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this brings us back to the money, the ROI.
The ROI curse.
The curse, yes.
Okay.
So email boasts this incredible ROI, like we said, $44 to $48 for every $1 spent in the US. In the UK, it's 42 dinners for every £1. It's printing money. But Kath Pay says this high ROI has become a massive trap.
It really has. Because it's viewed as a discount channel.
A discount channel.
Yeah, because it's so cheap to run, executives don't want to invest real budget, resources, or time into it. E-consultancy data actually shows that email contributes to 19% of sales, but it only gets 13% of the marketing budget.
And it's wild. It's doing a fifth of the heavy lifting and getting scraps for funding.
It's the ultimate irony, because you can make money through email with minimal effort just blasting out a promo code. Leaders just refuse to fund the strategy, the testing, the advanced automation that is needed to make it truly spectacular.
So marketers just skip the hard strategy part and go straight to buying new technology because it's just easier to justify a software purchase than a strategic overhaul.
Exactly, and that's the three-legged table analogy she uses. The three legs of email marketing are marketing principles, technology, and creativity.
And right now, the tech leg is huge.
Massive. The tech leg is like this giant, oversized pillar. The creativity leg is okay, but the marketing leg, the actual strategy, is just a tiny little stub. The table is completely unstable.
So we have to bring marketing, and by that we mean the science of persuasion, psychology, and real strategy back into email marketing.
We have to.
But how exactly does a marketer go about doing that? How do you bring marketing back when you're stuck in this tech-heavy rut?
Well, it requires a complete pivot to what she calls customer experience, or CX, email marketing.
Marketing. Okay.
The evolution of email means we have to move away from this rigid, campaign-focused mindset. We have to combine customer service with marketing-led values.
Customer service. Inside marketing.
Yeah. The new guiding question isn't how do we hit our sales quota? The question becomes, how do my emails help my customers achieve their own goals?
Wow. That's a huge shift.
It's a radical win-win paradigm. If a customer discovers that your emails are actively helping them succeed in whatever part of their life your product touches, what happens?
They're going to trust you more. They'll probably buy from you more often.
Exactly. You become indispensable. And the text emphasizes empathy here, which was especially highlighted during the crises of 2020.
Oh, 2020. Every brand suddenly cared about my well-being.
Right, in these unprecedented times. But the text is clear. This empathy must be authentic.
It can't just be virtue signaling.
No, opportunistic virtue signaling will destroy your brand trust faster than anything. Consumers are smart. They know when a brand is just trying to look good versus when they actually care about the customer experience.
Okay, so if we are really focusing on customer experience and empathy, shouldn't we just email them less? I mean, to avoid annoying them. Nobody likes a cluttered inbox.
That is a very common misconception. Yeah. The idea that absence makes the heart grow fonder just does not apply to good email marketing.
Huh. Why not?
Because email is uniquely powerful as a push channel.
A push channel.
Meaning you are pushing the message to them rather than them having to come search for you. If you are delivering genuine value based on that initial value exchange when they opted in, You are providing a service.
Ah, I see.
Subscribers don't actually hate frequent emails.
They don't.
No, they hate irrelevant batch and blast emails. If every email helps them, they want more of them.
That makes so much sense. So a practical takeaway for you. Go audit your last 3 email broadcasts. Look at them objectively. Do they solely serve your brand's need to hit a sales quota? Or do they actively inform, guide, or help the customer achieve their own goals?
That's a perfect exercise.
All right, so let's get into the real tactical meat of this. Kath Pei outlines 8 core principles to elevate email marketing. We need to systematically walk through all of these because this is where the rubber meets the road.
Let's do it.
Principle number 1. Strategy comes before tactics and technology.
What's fascinating here is that this seems so obvious, but it's universally ignored.
Why do you think that is?
She mentions Parkinson's law of triviality.
What's that?
It's this idea that organizations will spend hours and hours discussing trivial, easy-to-understand things like what color a button should be or hiring nano-influencers.
The fun stuff.
Exactly, the fun stuff. But they completely avoid the heavy lifting of defining a core strategy because strategy is hard.
So they just buy a tool and build a program around it.
Right. They let the software dictate the strategy. But you have to use lateral thinking, see the big picture, and define the strategy first.
Okay, principle 2. Wise email testing produces knowledge.
Yeah, testing isn't just about trying to get a 2% uplift on open rates for one campaign.
Like A/B testing a subject line emoji.
Exactly. That's shallow testing.
Yeah.
Wise testing is about learning fundamental psychological truths about your customer.
Oh, like testing a fear-based message versus an aspirational one.
Yes. And when you learn that your audience responds to aspiration, you don't just keep that in the email department. You share those learnings across all channels. You tell the web team, the social team.
You use email as the testing ground for the whole business.
Precisely.
That's powerful. Okay, principle 3. Email owns the customer journey. This one feels a little aggressive. Owns it.
It does sound bold, but it's true because email marketers sit on the most valuable asset. First-party, deterministic data.
Meaning they know exactly who the person is.
Yes. They aren't guessing with anonymous cookies. They have the email address. They know when that person opened, clicked, bought, and churned. Because they have the most data, they should be sitting in the director's chair orchestrating the whole journey.
Makes sense. Principle 4. Applying the holistic philosophy drives long-term results.
This is about exchanging that short-term, campaign-to-campaign survival mindset for actual life-cycle engagement.
Stop worrying just about Tuesday's newsletter and start looking at the 6-month relationship.
Exactly. You build automated flows that nurture the customer over time, which compounds your revenue.
All right. Principle 5. Permission rules. With an exclamation point.
The exclamation point is deserved.
I mean, obviously, it's legally required. GDPR, CCPA.
Sure, the legal aspect is the baseline, but more importantly, permission-based email simply performs better.
Because they actually asked for it.
Right. But you have to go beyond just having a generic sign up for our newsletter box on the homepage. You need specific permission for specific value. It's a delicate value exchange.
And if you break that trust, they're gone.
Instantly.
Okay, principle 6. Focus on giving customers the best email experience. This goes back to what we were saying about CX.
Yeah, it's about focusing on benefits over features.
Don't tell them the software has a new algorithm. Tell them it saves them 2 hours a day.
Exactly. Meet their needs and use the data you have to personalize that experience so it feels tailor-made for them.
Love it. Principle 7. The right metrics give you the best guidance.
We have to stop relying on top-of-funnel vanity metrics.
Like open rates.
Open rates are practically useless now, especially with Apple's mail privacy protection.
Right. The system just opens everything in the background anyway.
Exactly. You have to measure the actual business objective. Did they convert? What was the average order value? Did their lifetime value increase?
Track the money and the retention, not just the clicks.
Spot on.
And finally, principle 8. Align your email programs with your goals and objectives. Kath Pei talks about naming your programs according to what you want to achieve.
What's fascinating here is how this tiny administrative task changes everything.
I compare this to saving files on a messy computer desktop. You know, if you just name your emails Newsletter 1 or March Promo, you completely lose focus.
You have no idea what it's supposed to do.
Right. But if you explicitly name it in the system, lapsed customer win-back, every single piece of copy, every design choice, it's all forced to align with that specific goal.
Because the goal is literally the title of the project.
It's such a brilliant psychological hack for marketing teams. So for your very next campaign, start by writing down the ultimate business objective first. Then select the specific metric that proves you hit it. And finally, physically name the campaign after that objective.
It will completely focus your creative team.
So if we step back and synthesize all of this, from the elephant in the rope to the three-legged table to these 8 principles, it all points to one undeniable truth. Technology is nothing but a delivery vessel.
It's just the plumbing.
Just the plumbing. The true, untapped power of email marketing lies in adopting this holistic, empathetic strategy. It's a mindset that views every single customer interaction not as a quick transaction to be won, but as a continuous, mutually beneficial relationship to be nurtured.
That is the soul of the chapter. If you get that right, the technology will amplify your success. If you get it wrong, the technology will just help you annoy people at a faster scale.
Well said. Now that we've completely dismantled the old way of thinking and laid this holistic foundation, we're perfectly positioned to see exactly how this operates in the real world.
We've got the theory, now we need the practice.
Exactly. But you'll have to join us for our next deep dive to explore the deep mechanics of lifecycle marketing and extreme personalization.
Before you go, I want to leave you with one final, lingering question to mull over. Think about the concept of the value exchange we just discussed. Your customer gave you a highly guarded key to their personal, private inbox in exchange for a promise.
A promise of value.
Right. So, based on the emails you sent out this week, did you prove to them that you still deserve to hold that key tomorrow? We have, the most advanced email technology in human history right at our fingertips today. I mean, I'm talking about dynamic content that literally changes the moment a user opens the message.
Oh yeah, it's wild.
Right. And we've got these automated behavioral triggers that track just microscopic interactions, infinite data lakes detailing every single click, scroll, pause, you name it.
So everything.
We've basically built this staggeringly complex infrastructure just to reach people in their most private digital spaces. So with all of this incredible futuristic power, why are we still just blasting our audiences with annoying buy now messages over and over again? Have we completely forgotten the actual marketing in email marketing?
Yeah, that's really the defining paradox of the digital marketing age, right?
Right.
We possess this capability to engineer highly personalized, deeply resonant customer experiences.
Yeah.
But the default setting for so many brands is to just treat this incredibly sophisticated channel as nothing more than a blunt instrument.
The blunt instrument, yeah.
It's like we're taking a precision scalpel and just, using it like a sledgehammer.
Well, welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're exploring Chapter 1 of Kath Pei's really defining book, Holistic Email Marketing. And here is our mission for the time we have together today. We are going to learn how to pivot from being these technology-obsessed campaigners into customer-centric marketers who actually use behavioral psychology and genuine empathy to serve the inbox.
Which is so needed.
It really is. And this matters for anyone in business or, anyone trying to build an audience out there. Because treating email as a helpful service rather than just a relentless digital megaphone, that's the ultimate secret to unlocking massive sustainable growth.
It really requires a fundamental paradigm shift.
Yeah.
To understand why this shift is so desperately needed right now, we have to look at the core tension the author establishes immediately in the text. Marketers today are just deeply anchored to this business as usual, set it and forget it mindset.
But wait, are they anchored to it because it actually works or just because it's easy?
Honestly, it's a dangerous combination of both.
Really?
Yeah, because it yields just enough decent results with a minimum amount of effort. Think about it. If you load up a massive list and just push a button, a certain percentage of people will click and you will make some money.
Right, the numbers game.
Exactly. The return on investment is technically there. But this reliance on good enough is a total trap. That baseline success basically keeps the marketing ship permanently stuck in the harbor. It totally prevents brands from doing the deeper, harder work required to sail out into the open waters of true customer loyalty and, high-margin long-term revenue.
That totally makes me think of a broken sprinkler system. You turn it on, the water sprays wildly everywhere, and sure, some of it hits the grass and the lawn stays alive. But half the water is flooding the driveway, it's soaking the mail carrier, and it's just wasting resources.
That's a great visual.
Just because the grass isn't dead doesn't mean the system is actually working the way it should.
Right. No, that is a highly accurate way to look at it. And the text actually uses a very specific structural analogy to diagnose why this happens. Pay describes email marketing as a three-legged table.
Okay, a table.
Right. So the three legs holding everything up are marketing principles, which represent your foundation, strategy, and human psychology. Then you have technology, which is the delivery mechanism, so your ESP, the automation software. And finally, creativity, which encompasses the message design, the copy, and the visual assets.
Let me guess. Most brands have completely disproportionate legs.
Oh, drastically disproportionate. I
So,
mean, because it is so much easier to just buy a new software platform than it is to develop a deep psychological understanding of your customer.
obviously.
And so brands invest heavily in the tech. They end up building a table with this massive oak tree-sized technology leg, a pretty decent creativity leg, and a tiny little toothpick of a marketing leg.
And the table just inevitably tips over.
Exactly. You try to set a campaign on it, and it all just slides right off onto the floor. You can possess the most expensive enterprise-level email software in the world, but if your core marketing principles, your actual understanding of human behavior, are weak, your campaign collapses.
It collapses because the foundation is unbalanced. So to fix that wobbly table, to reinforce that marketing leg, we can't just tweak a few subject lines or A/B test a button color. We really need a radical reevaluation of the ultimate goal of an email.
We do.
Like, why are we invading someone's digital space in the first place? And to answer that, the author shares this foundational anecdote in the book. And what's super interesting is that it has absolutely nothing to do with digital marketing.
Nothing at all.
Right. It's an offline experience at London's Waterloo East Station. I found this story so fascinating when I was reading through the source material. But how does a random train station encounter translate to sending a broadcast email to, 100,000 people?
Well, it translates by defining the emotional core of a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
So the author describes walking up this very steep, long ramp at the station. And ahead of her, she sees a frail-looking, elderly French widow who is clearly struggling. She's trying to drag a massive, heavy suitcase up this incline.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So Pei alters her own path, rushes over, grabs the heavy bag, and just carries it for the woman all the way to her train on the other side of the station. They have a lovely little chat, exchange the traditional French cheek kisses, and part ways.
So just a completely random analog act of kindness.
Exactly. But Pei notes the psychological aftermath of that simple, maybe 5-minute favor. She left the station with a massive smile on her face and a profound sense of warmth and fulfillment.
A helper's high, basically.
Right. By helping this total stranger achieve her goal, which was getting to the train without physical pain, the author ended up achieving an emotional reward herself.
Okay, I see the human value there. Absolutely. But if I'm playing devil's advocate for, say, the CMO listening to this right now, how does carrying a bag relate to the very, very high-pressure demands of a quarterly earnings report? Like, my boss doesn't care about a warm glow.
And they shouldn't. But this is the absolute core philosophy of what Pei defines as customer experience email marketing, or CX email marketing.
Okay.
The underlying principle is this: when you help your customers achieve their goals, they will naturally help you achieve yours. It is a mutually beneficial relationship. An email should not just be a vehicle to extract money from a wallet. It must be a service interaction.
Let me push back on that a bit, because the reality of corporate marketing is pretty aggressive. If I spend my team's bandwidth just trying to be helpful and sending service-oriented emails, aren't I sacrificing the hard sell? Like, how do we justify that kind of soft approach to the C-suite?
You justify it with the data that follows the behavior. And this is the radical part of the shift. It isn't about sacrificing revenue for the sake of altruism, not at all.
Okay, that's a relief.
It is about understanding the mechanics of long-term human behavior. If your customers consistently discover that your emails help them succeed in their lives, whether that means making a smarter purchase, saving time, learning how to use a complex software tool better, or honestly simply feeling understood, they develop trust. And in the digital landscape, trust is the ultimate currency.
Right. So, mechanically speaking, how does that trust actually translate into the ROI my boss wants to see?
It changes the fundamental metrics of your database. Customers who trust your brand buy from you more often. They stay subscribed longer, which extends their lifetime value. They become brand advocates.
Sure, the lifetime value goes up.
But even more mechanically, engagement drives deliverability.
Mm.
If you are sending deeply helpful content, people open it, they reply to it, they forward it. Internet service providers like Google and Microsoft see those positive engagement signals, and they route your future emails directly to the primary inbox, rather than dumping them in the spam folder.
Oh, right. The algorithms reward the engagement.
Exactly. So your highly profitable promotional emails eventually perform way better, because the helpful emails pave the technical and emotional way first.
Wow, that is a crucial mechanism. The ROI naturally follows the helpfulness because you're literally training both the human being and the algorithm to welcome your messages.
You are.
So if our new overarching goal is to deliver that level of service, we need to examine the unique architecture of email itself. The text points out that we have to understand email as a push channel.
Yeah, and the distinction between a push channel and a pull channel is really vital here. If you want to master this medium, you have to understand the environment you're operating in. So think about a corporate blog or an e-commerce website or a social media feed. Those are pull channels.
Because you have to rely on the user's momentum to pull them in, right?
Exactly.
You build this beautiful digital storefront, you write a great SEO-optimized article, and then you just wait. You're just hoping the search algorithm favors you, or that the user wakes up and actually decides to type your URL into their browser.
You are entirely dependent on their intent. But email operates on a completely different physical architecture. Email is a push channel. It guarantees that the message gets delivered directly to the user's personal environment exactly when the sender wants it to be seen. You aren't waiting for them to walk by the store. You are actively tapping them on the shoulder.
It's inherently disruptive then. I mean, you are interrupting whatever they were doing to demand their attention.
Yes, and that's their power, the ability to bypass the noise and push a message directly onto their screen, comes with an immense amount of responsibility. Which brings us to a psychological barrier that the text identifies as a massive hurdle for modern marketers. It's the fear of frequency, or what Delacroix calls the fear and self-loathing in email marketing.
Oh man, I have absolutely felt this. As marketers, we are just constantly hammered with this mantra that less is more. We are terrified of the unsubscribe button.
Completely paralyzed by it.
We sit in these long meetings agonizing over whether sending a third email this week is going to annoy the list and cause this mass exodus. We end up practically apologizing for showing up in the inbox at all.
It is such a pervasive anxiety. But let me ask you, why do you think that fear exists in the first place?
Honestly, because my own inbox is a nightmare. I get hundreds of promotional emails a day. The fatigue is super real. So if consumers are actively complaining about getting too much email, shouldn't we as empathetic marketers listen to them and just send less?
It seems like the logical, empathetic response.
Right.
However, the source material takes a very firm, data-backed stance here that completely flips that as assumption on its head. The reality is that people do not hate frequent email.
I don't.
No, they hate irrelevant, valueless email.
Wait, let me make sure I'm grasping the distinction here. You're saying the volume isn't the irritant at all, it's the lack of utility.
Precisely. Think about the notifications you receive on your phone. If your bank texts you 3 times a day about fraudulent charges, you don't get annoyed at the frequency, right? You are incredibly grateful for the utility.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
But if a brand is sending the exact same generic self-serving buy now email 3 times a week, then yes, frequency is your enemy. You are just creating noise. But if you are sending highly relevant, deeply helpful, personalized content that actually solves a problem for the user, they want that.
They actually look forward to it.
They do. And the data the author references across numerous client audits shows that brands actually leave significant revenue on the table by not sending enough email.
Wow. Because they let the fear of the unsubscribe button completely paralyze their strategy. They play it safe to avoid annoying, the bottom 1% of their list, and in doing so, they completely fail to serve the top 20% of their list, who actively want to hear from them.
Which introduces the core operational concept of the value exchange. We really have to view an email address as a currency. When someone hands over their email address, they are making a trade.
A transaction.
Right. They're granting you access to their intimate digital space in exchange for a promise of value, whether that's industry insights, exclusive discounts, or early access to products.
So as long as every single email you push out actively honors that initial trade by providing real value, you don't need to be afraid of hitting send.
You should hold your head high.
Yeah.
You claimed your space in the inbox because you know you are delivering a service.
But that immediately creates a massive execution challenge, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If we're committing to sending more frequent emails, and we know they absolutely must be valuable and not annoying, we have to deeply understand how our customers actually process information and make decisions.
Exactly. We have to move beyond just strategy and get into the psychology of persuasion.
Okay, let's pause on the word persuasion, because I really want to interrogate that. It carries a lot of baggage. In modern marketing, persuasion often feels synonymous with coercion.
It really does.
Right. It sounds like those dark pattern UX designs that trick you into subscribing to a service you can't figure out how to cancel.
Yeah, and it is a vital distinction to make here. The text is unambiguous on this front. Persuasion, in the context of holistic email marketing, is not about bamboozling a consumer into buying something they do not want or need. It is not manipulation.
Then how do we define it mechanically?
True persuasion, in this framework, is about utilizing an understanding of cognitive biases to help your customers make their own decisions faster, easier, and with much greater confidence. It's about actively removing the psychological friction from their natural decision-making process.
Let's map that out with the behavioral science presented in the book. The text leans really heavily on Daniel Kahneman's Nobel Prize-winning work, Thinking Fast and Slow.
Yes, Kahneman essentially mapped the architecture of human decision-making by dividing the brain's operations into two systems. System 1 is fast, it's automatic, instinctive, and highly emotional. It operates totally below our conscious awareness.
Just gut reactions.
Exactly. Then you have System 2, which is slower, deliberative, logical, and requires significant cognitive effort to actually engage.
And the staggering statistic here is that something like 90% or more of our decisions are entirely unconscious. They're driven by System 1 before System 2 even wakes up.
Which means if you are writing emails that only appeal to System 2, like if you were just listing bullet points of technical features and dry statistics, you are completely missing the driver of the decision.
The emotional core.
Right. And to visualize this, Pei borrows a brilliant analogy from Douglas Van Prate's book, Unconscious Branding. It's the Spock versus Kirk dynamic.
Okay, I love this analogy. Walk me through how Spock and Kirk are reading my promotional emails.
Well, we all inherently like to view ourselves as Mr. Spock, especially when we're making financial decisions. We believe we are purely logical beings.
Of course.
We assume we analyze all the features, we compare the competitive price points, read the spec sheets, and arrive at a perfectly rational, data-driven choice.
But the behavioral science says that is a complete delusion.
A total delusion. In reality, we are Captain Kirk.
Just running on emotion.
Exactly. We are acting on raw emotion, instinct, and gut feeling. We see a sleek, new software tool or a beautifully designed piece of clothing, and our inner Captain Kirk reacts instantly. I want that. It makes me feel innovative or attractive or secure. The emotional decision is made in milliseconds by System 1.
And then, after the decision is already locked in unconsciously, we call down to Mr. Spock in the engineering bay to find the data to justify what we just did.
Yes.
We say, well, the software integrates with our current tech stack, and the clothing is made from sustainable materials. We use logic to defend the emotion we already felt.
We convert emotionally first, and we rationalize the decision later. And the practical takeaway for an email marketer here is profound. It dictates your entire content hierarchy.
How so?
You must emotionally engage the audience first. You use storytelling, compelling copywriting, and aspirational imagery to speak directly to Captain Kirk. You have to secure that emotional buy-in.
Yeah.
Only once Kirk is on board do you provide the logical details, the social proof, and the technical specs, so Spock can justify the purchase to himself or, his boss.
That completely flips how most B2B companies design their emails. They almost always lead with the specs.
Always.
But speaking of how we speak to Kirk, the text dives into some extremely powerful cognitive drivers that trigger that System 1 response. Let's break those down, starting with loss aversion and scarcity.
Okay, so loss aversion is a deeply ingrained evolutionary trait. The psychological principle states that the pain of losing something is mathematically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the exact same thing.
Meaning, the psychological sting of losing a $20 bill from your pocket hurts twice as much as the joy of finding a $20 bill on the sidewalk.
Exactly. We are wired for survival, which means we prioritize avoiding pain much more urgently than we seek pleasure. When you combine this with scarcity, the idea that a desired item or opportunity is limited, it creates a massive behavioral trigger. We act significantly faster to avoid the pain of missing out than we do to acquire something new.
I totally understand the theory, but let me challenge the modern application of this. Everyone listening to this right now has received an email with a giant ticking countdown timer that screams, "Sale ends at midnight."
Oh, every day?
Right. Aren't modern consumers completely blind to this now? If we know the brand is just going to run another sale next week, doesn't fake scarcity actually destroy the trust we just spent so long talking about?
That is a phenomenal point, and it really highlights the difference between a tactic and a strategy. Slapping a fake countdown timer on an email is a tactic, and you are totally right. consumers see right through it. It causes fatigue and breeds deep cynicism. The text advocates for authentic scarcity and loss aversion.
So what does authentic loss aversion look like in an email?
It looks like structural reality. If you are selling a physical product, it means showing real-time inventory levels, like only 3 left in your size. That is true scarcity.
That makes sense.
And if you're a sauce company, loss aversion isn't a faked discount timer. It's highlighting the ongoing pain the user is experiencing by not using your product.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you'd say, every day you delay automating this process, your team loses 4 hours of billable time. You are framing the status quo as an act of loss. You aren't tricking them. You are illuminating the reality of their current situation to trigger System 1.
That is a much more sophisticated way to use the psychology. It actually respects the user's intelligence.
Okay, what about social proof? This is Robert Cialdini's territory, right? The idea that there's safety in numbers.
Yeah. Social proof is the ultimate cognitive shortcut for System 1. When human beings are placed in an ambiguous situation and are unsure of how to act, we look to the behavior of others to guide our own decisions. Our primitive brain assumes that if a large group of people are doing something, it must be the correct, safe choice to ensure our survival.
The classic offline example is the busy restaurant. If you're in a new city and see 2 restaurants, one has a line out the door, the other is completely empty, your brain automatically assumes the busy one is better, even if you haven't even seen a menu.
Totally.
But how do we elevate this beyond just pasting a 5-star review at the bottom of an email?
By integrating it dynamically into the narrative of the email itself. It's not just here is a review. It is using phrasing that signals community and consensus, like join 50,000 other marketing professionals who get our weekly insights.
Showing the scale. Exactly. Or using dynamic data integrations that show 15 people in your industry purchased this tool in the last 24 hours. It signals to Captain Kirk, this is a safe harbor. Others have vetted this. You will not be isolated or foolish for making this choice.
This is where things get really exciting for me, because understanding the theory is one thing, but execution is everything. How do these psychological theories actually manifest when a real human being clicks through an email and navigates a website?
The real-world application.
Right, and the source material maps this out step by step across the customer journey. So let's trace that path, starting at the very beginning, the sign-up stage.
The initial handshake. This is the moment of highest friction because you are asking a total stranger for their data, and this is where the principle of reciprocity must be deployed.
Reciprocity. The deep-seated urge to return a favor.
It is a fundamental social contract. If someone does something valuable for you, you feel an inherent, almost uncomfortable psychological obligation to do something nice for them in return to settle that social debt.
So how do we code reciprocity into a lead capture form without it feeling like a bribe?
By creating a genuinely balanced exchange of value. I mean, think about most brands. They use a pop-up that simply demands, sign up for our newsletter.
Right, before you even read a word on the page.
Exactly. That is a unilateral demand. Reciprocity requires offering a tangible, immediate benefit up front. It could be an exclusive downloadable guide that solves a specific problem they are researching, or a really meaningful discount. You are offering the favor first.
You're leading with value.
Yes. And once the user accepts that favor, the guide or the discount, the psychological mechanism of reciprocity activates, making them significantly more likely to complete the sign-up process and willingly step into the relationship. It feels like a fair trade, not an extraction.
Okay, they've accepted the trade, they gave us their email, they clicked the link in our welcome sequence, and now they land on the homepage of our website. What psychological levers are we pulling here to keep them moving down the funnel?
At this stage, the primary goal is combating overwhelm. We must focus on cognitive ease and utilize what is known as the von Riesdorf effect.
The von Riesdorf effect. I have to admit, that sounds like a complicated chess maneuver. What does it actually mean?
Well, it is also known as the isolation effect. It is a very simple but incredibly powerful cognitive bias, which states that when multiple similar objects are present, the one that differs from the rest is the most likely to be remembered and focused on. It is the psychological equivalent of a sore thumb.
So if I am looking at a bowl of 20 green apples and there is one bright red apple right in the center, my visual cortex immediately locks onto the red one.
Precisely. Now, we must combine that visual isolation with cognitive ease. Cognitive ease is the concept of intentionally reducing the amount of brain power, the cognitive load a user has to expend to figure out what you want them to do next.
Make it as simple as possible.
Right. Because when a user lands on a web page, Their System 1 brain is frantically scanning the layout, trying to make sense of the hierarchy. If you make that scanning process difficult, if they have to search for the next step, they experience cognitive strain and they bounce.
So mechanically, how do we translate that red apple into web design?
By using explicit, isolated visual cues. Pay gives the example of using bold, highly contrasting colors for your primary call to action button. But it goes further than just the button color. It is about using negative space, blank space around the button so it stands totally alone.
So it's not crowded by text.
Exactly. It's about using directional cues like a subtle arrow or even an image of a person whose eyes are looking directly at the CTA button. By isolating that action visually and literally pointing to it, you remove all the guesswork. The user's brain does not have to expend a single calorie of energy to find the next step. It is served to them on a silver platter.
You are acting as the ultimate tour guide, effortlessly directing traffic. All right, so they followed the directional cues, they clicked the isolated button, and now they are on the product page. This is where we run into a pricing concept that I see absolutely everywhere now that I know what to look for: anchoring.
Anchoring is a fascinating cognitive bias where we rely far too heavily on the very first piece of information we are offered, which becomes the anchor when we are making subsequent decisions.
Yeah.
It sets the baseline for our entire perception of value.
The classic example is walking into a high-end clothing boutique, right? If the very first item I look at is a leather jacket priced at $2,000, my brain is immediately anchored to that massive number.
Right.
Then, when I turn around and see a plain t-shirt for $100, my brain says, wow, what a bargain, even though $100 for a t-shirt is objectively expensive. The $2,000 jacket completely warped my perception of the baseline.
That is exactly how it works. And in the digital space, the book highlights how anchoring is used extensively in pricing architecture, specifically through what we call the Goldilocks principle.
Not too hot, not too cold, the safe middle ground.
Think about the last time you looked at the pricing page for a sauce company or a subscription service. They rarely ever present you with just one option.
Never.
They almost universally present three tiers. You have a basic, a standard, and a premium.
And the premium tier is usually insanely expensive, loaded with enterprise features that a normal user would never, ever need.
But that premium tier serves a vital, invisible psychological purpose. That high price tag acts as the anchor. It establishes a high perceived overall value for the company's service. Because that anchor is set so aggressively high, the middle tier, the standard option, which is almost always visually highlighted with a banner declaring it the best value or most popular, suddenly feels incredibly reasonable.
The company probably doesn't even expect a large volume of users to buy the premium tier, do they? Its primary function is literally just to make the middle tier look like a financially responsible choice.
Exactly. It guides the user toward the exact option the company originally wanted them to select, while making the user feel like they have navigated the choices and found a savvy, moderate deal. Spock feels good about the comparative math, and Kirk feels good about not getting ripped off.
It is a brilliantly constructed illusion of choice. Okay, so our user has selected the standard package, they have added it to their digital cart, and now they arrive at the final boss of the customer journey, the absolute graveyard of conversions, the checkout page.
And this is where a staggering number of brands lose the sale, because they blatantly violate Hicks' law.
I really want to spend a lot of time on this because cart abandonment is the bane of every marketer's existence. Let's clearly define Hicks' law.
Hicks' law states that the time and cognitive effort required to make a decision increases logarithmically as the number of available alternatives increases. Simply put, too much choice induces decision paralysis.
The paradox of choice. You go to a diner with a 15-page menu, you get completely overwhelmed by the options, and you end up just ordering a grilled cheese sandwich because your brain refuses to process the complexity.
That's it, perfectly. And the source material points out a beautifully terrible, incredibly common example of this in website design. Picture a checkout page where the user is suddenly bombarded with a huge wall of options. They're asked to check out as guest, or register for a new account, or sign in if you already have an account.
Oh, I hate those pages.
And below that are 20 form fields, checkboxes for terms of service, checkboxes to opt into partner emails, and a field for a promo code they don't even have.
I'm getting stressed just visualizing that page. When I hit a wall of friction like that, my System 1 brain screams, this is way too much work, and I just close the tab, I abandon the cart.
That is Hicks' law in action. The cognitive load required to decipher that page exceeds the user's desire for the product. The practical, technical takeaway here is brutal simplification. The book suggests completely destroying that complex page and replacing it with a process that demands almost zero cognitive effort.
So how do we mechanically redesign it? What is the ideal flow here?
You break that massive wall down into micro-commitments. The initial screen should ask for exactly one piece of data, the email address. Below that, a simple binary question, do you have a password?
That is it. No guest checkout versus account creation debate.
You remove that debate entirely. If they select, no, I don't have a password, the system dynamically recognizes them as a new user, and you immediately transition them into the payment flow. You tell them, great, you can finalize an account later.
That's smooth.
It accomplishes two massive psychological wins. First, it respects Hicks' law by removing all visual clutter and presenting a super simple binary choice. Second, it utilizes the principle of commitment and consensus.
I see the sequence now. By getting them to make a tiny, completely painless commitment like just typing in their email address on a clean screen, they have psychologically initiated the checkout process.
Yes, humans have a deep, unconscious drive to remain consistent with our past actions. Once we take that first small step, we view ourselves as someone who is checking out. Quitting after that first step causes cognitive dissonance. So by making the first step totally frictionless, you dramatically increase the statistical likelihood that they will finish the entire complex process of entering their credit card details. They are emotionally invested in completing the sequence.
This is all incredibly potent stuff. We have reverse engineered anchoring, isolation effects, reciprocity, loss aversion, and decision paralysis. It is an absolute masterclass in psychological architecture.
Yeah.
But I have a massive reservation here.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a marketer takes all these behavioral triggers and applies them coldly, just, pulling levers like an engineer trying to manipulate a machine, the modern consumer is going to sense it. It is going to feel sterile, transactional, and ultimately gross.
It will feel incredibly manipulative, and the consumer will absolutely rebel against it. And that is why the final section of Kath Pei's chapter is arguably the most vital piece of the puzzle. All of these cognitive biases and psychological principles are just the mechanics. They are the wiring. But the electricity that powers the system, the glue that holds holistic email marketing together, is empathy.
Empathy, the human element.
Yes. We have to violently remind ourselves that all marketing, despite the complex algorithms and the massive data sets, is at its core just people talking to people.
Right.
Our customers are not just nodes in a data lake.
Right.
They're not just users or wallets waiting to be optimized. They are complex human beings experiencing emotions, fears, desires, and daily frustrations.
The text specifically brings up the events of 2020 as a massive, unavoidable catalyst for this realization. The global lockdowns, the pandemic, the widespread social and economic unrest. It was a unique period where the entire planet was collectively experiencing trauma and deep uncertainty.
And it forced an immediate brutal reckoning in the marketing world. Suddenly, the old playbook was totally toxic, blasting out a tone-deaf, aggressive, buy now, don't miss out. Email, during a period of global fear, didn't just feel ineffective, it felt actively offensive.
It really did.
Marketers had to scramble almost overnight to pivot away from the hard sell and adopt a tone of genuine empathy and measured, highly sensitive communication.
We all remember the deluge of those emails in these unprecedented times. But this raises a really tricky operational dilemma, and I want to push you hard on this.
Please do. Let's interrogate it.
If I am sitting in a boardroom and I say to my team, okay, the data shows empathy works, we need to inject 20% more empathy into our Q3 automated email drips to increase our open rates? Doesn't that fundamentally run the risk of being incredibly cynical? Like, how do I mechanically code authentic empathy into an automated 5-part drip campaign for an enterprise software tool? Isn't manufacturing empathy at scale an oxymoron that customers will immediately spot?
You have identified the exact danger zone, and it leads directly into a severe warning from the source material, the trap of virtue signaling.
Let's define virtue signaling in this context. It's expressing high moral values or deep empathy in your copy without actually taking any real action or holding those values authentically within the business.
Precisely. Today's consumers have highly calibrated bullshit detectors. If a brand suddenly adopts a deeply empathetic, caring tone in their marketing copy during a crisis, or loudly proclaims their support for a social cause, but their actual business practices, their refund policies, or their customer service queues completely contradict that message, the backlash will be swift and severe. The empathy is revealed as just a thin veneer.
So how do you avoid that trap? How do you operationalize empathy so it isn't just a marketing fad legislated by an executive?
You operationalize empathy by connecting it directly to your data infrastructure. Authentic empathy in email marketing means using your data to actually put yourself in the customer's shoes and anticipate their friction.
Give me a concrete mechanical example of what that looks like in a campaign.
Okay, let's look at SaaS onboarding. A user signs up for free trial. The standard non-empathetic approach is to send them 3 automated emails over a week shouting, "Upgrade to paid now to unlock all features." That is the brand's goal, not the user's.
Right. They just want the upgrade.
Coded empathy looks at the behavioral data. You query the system. Has this user actually logged in and completed the core setup task? If the data says no, they haven't even set up the tool, an empathetic automated system pauses the upgrade emails.
Oh, wow. It stops the sequence.
It stops it, and
Yeah.
instead, it triggers a plain text, low-pressure email that looks like it came from a real human being. It says, "Hey, I noticed you signed up but haven't created your first project yet. This tool can be overwhelming. Where are you stuck? Reply to this email and let me help."
That is brilliant. You are using the advanced technology, the data queries, and the automation triggers to deliver a profoundly human, service-oriented interaction. You are helping them achieve their goal of setting up the tool, which eventually leads to your goal of getting them to pay.
Exactly. It ties all the way back to the core philosophy of CX email marketing. Pay offers a great grounding piece of advice for marketers trying to calibrate their tone. Look at your own inbox. You are a consumer too. When you are stressed or busy or overwhelmed, what kind of messages from brands actually resonate with you? Which ones make you feel respected and which ones make you want to instantly hunt for the unsubscribe link?
Market unto others as you would have them market unto you.
It is the golden rule of holistic email marketing. And we must remember that empathy isn't reserved just for global crises. It is for everyday frustrations. Acknowledging that a customer might be having a chaotic day when they receive your abandoned cart email and designing that email to be helpful and gentle rather than aggressive and demanding. That is an act of empathy.
Okay, let's pull all of these massive concepts together because we have covered an incredible amount of ground today. We started by diagnosing the foundational problem, that wobbly, three-legged table where brands lean entirely on expensive technology while ignoring the vital marketing and psychological foundation.
And we explored how to repair that foundation by shifting our entire worldview from campaign-driven extraction to customer experience, service-driven email marketing. We learned that the ROI follows the helpfulness.
We established the rules of engagement for a push channel, learning that if we actively honor the value exchange, we never have to fear the frequency of our sends. We brought Kahneman's System 1 and System 2 into the inbox, using Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock to understand why we absolutely must secure the emotional conversion before we offer the logical justification.
We then mapped the practical application of those behavioral biases, reciprocity, the von Restorff effect, anchoring, and Hick's law across the entire digital architecture, from the initial sign-up friction to the final checkout commitment.
And we wrapped all of that powerful psychological architecture in the absolute non-negotiable necessity of authentic, operationalized empathy. So, what is the ultimate takeaway here? The synthesis I am pulling from Kath Pei's work is that the future of email marketing isn't going to be found in a shiny new piece of software. The real frontier of email marketing is found in a deeper understanding of the human mind.
I couldn't agree more. By blending timeless marketing principles, a rigorous understanding of behavioral psychology, and genuine empathy, we possess the power to transform email from a disruptive nuisance into a deeply valued customer service. We build that solid foundation so our strategy never collapses.
But this leaves us with a truly provocative question to chew on, something that extends beyond the text. We just talked about coding empathy into automation. As AI models become increasingly sophisticated at analyzing user behavior and drafting hyper-personalized, perfectly empathetic responses, does the customer actually care if the empathy is generated by a machine as long as their problem is solved and they feel understood? Or will the ultimate luxury in future marketing be proving that a real human being was actually involved in the process?
That is the existential question the industry will be wrestling with for the next decade.
Now that we understand the psychology and the empathy required for a winning, customer-centric mindset, how do we actually build the technical framework to support it? Next time, we will dive into how this exact strategic philosophy dictates the technology you buy and the vendors you choose, because a master builder is ultimately only as good as the tools they select. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time. I want you to imagine You're sitting in the cockpit of a Formula One race car.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Right. So you have the most advanced, I mean, just cutting edge telemetry in the world right at your fingertips.
Yeah,
You've got predictive algorithms, dynamic routing, an engine that probably costs more than a small island nation.
easily, yeah.
And yet you are stuck in first gear. You're just kind of puttering around the track at like 30 miles an hour, wondering why absolutely everyone else is lapping you.
Wow, that is exactly what modern email marketing feels like for most businesses today.
It really is. Because we have AI-driven send time optimization now. We
Wow.
have these dynamic content blocks that can personalize a message down to a recipient's exact behavioral history. The tech is just miraculous. So why are open rates stagnant?
Yeah, why is engagement dropping across the board?
Exactly. Why does it feel like we are working twice as hard for, maybe half the return?
It's basically the defining paradox of modern digital marketing right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have never, ever had more sophisticated or powerful tools at our disposal.
Right.
But instead of those tools setting us free to do our best, most creative work, they have actually, they've become a trap.
A trap. How so?
Because we have fundamentally inverted the relationship between our brains and our software.
Right.
Like we are letting the technology dictate our strategy rather than forcing the technology to execute our strategy.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. And fixing that inversion is exactly our mission today.
Absolutely.
So we're doing a deep dive into Chapter 2 of Kath Pei's work, Holistic Email Marketing. And we are going to fundamentally rewire how you approach your campaigns.
Yeah, we're really going to unpack why adopting a strict strategy and service mindset and doing this before you even log into your platform is basically the ultimate shortcut.
Right. And whether you are a founder bootstrapping your first product or, a CMO managing this massive global matrix team, mastering this mindset is how you transform your highest ROI channel from a frustrating slot machine into a predictable, sustainable growth engine.
Because the foundational issue we really have to confront here is that email is widely, almost universally misunderstood by the very people who use it the most.
That's a bold claim.
It is, but it's true. It's increasingly treated as like an IT function or this purely technological channel rather than what it actually is, which is a psychological human marketing channel.
Right, because there's this really pervasive and honestly dangerous assumption that if a business just buys the right software.
Oh, yeah. The shiny new toy.
Exactly. Like if they just get the most expensive tier of whatever platform happens to be trending on LinkedIn this week, the software will just magically generate the marketing strategy for them.
Yeah, and that is just not how it works.
But wait, let me stop you right there and play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because I hear this from founders like all the time. If an enterprise-grade email platform promises this seamless, automated drag-and-drop workflow,
Right.
and if they have spent literally millions of dollars training their machine learning models on billions of data points, why shouldn't a busy team just lean on that?
It sounds tempting.
Yeah. Doesn't the tech inherently have a proven strategy baked into its code by this point?
So it has a capability baked into its code, not a strategy.
Capability, not strategy. Okay, break that down.
Let's think about the actual mechanics of what a tool does.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so imagine a high-end professional-grade oven. It might have this hyper-advanced convection preset for roasting a duck perfectly.
Yes.
Right, but the oven does not know if your dinner guests are vegan.
Oh.
It doesn't know what time they're arriving or if you are trying to impress a brand new client versus just having a casual family meal.
That makes total sense.
The technology solves a very specific tactical problem, like how to apply heat efficiently. But it does absolutely nothing to solve the strategic problem of hosting a successful dinner party.
That distinction is so crucial. The tool knows how to send, but it has no idea why it's sending or, who it's really talking to on a human level.
Exactly. And the author frames this beautifully in the source material. She points out that email is actually, in a lot of ways, its own worst enemy.
Its own worst enemy, because it's too easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it naturally boasts such a massive return on investment.
Yeah.
And because the barrier to entry is so incredibly low. Literally anyone can type out a message and hit send.
Right.
And because of that, companies become astonishingly complacent. They just refuse to invest the proper intellectual capital into it.
It breeds this culture of underinvestment. Like, if you can make a decent chunk of revenue using these outdated, unstrategic batch and blast methods, the executive team just looks at the spreadsheet and says, well, it's making money. Why on earth would we spend 3 weeks redesigning our entire customer lifecycle?
Exactly. And the data completely supports this complacency. The research cited in the text reveals that only 56% of marketers base their technology decisions on an actual business strategy.
Hold on, wait, so that leaves 44% of marketers, that's nearly half the industry just winging it.
Just winging it, yes.
How does a CFO even approve a massive software procurement if there isn't a strategy dictating why they need it? I mean, are people just buying platforms based on which vendor had the slickest dashboard demo?
That is precisely what is happening. And marketers actually fall victim to this psychological phenomenon called Parkinson's law of triviality.
Okay, I love a good law. What is that?
So it's a concept that states that people within organizations will instinctively give disproportionate weight and attention to trivial issues.
Because they're easier.
Exactly, because they're easy to understand and really quick to resolve. Meanwhile, they actively avoid the complex foundational issues because those require painful, prolonged effort.
Oh, wow. That hits really close to home.
Right. It happens every single day. Yeah. If you log into your email platform, deciding which shiny new feature to use, like, I don't know, embedding a countdown timer.
Oh, people love the countdown timers.
They do.
Yeah.
Or A/B testing a button color from blue to green. That stuff is easy. It's fun.
Yeah, it gives your brain a quick little hit of dopamine.
Exactly. And it provides the illusion of productivity. You can check it off your to-do list and say, hey, I optimized the campaign today.
But sitting down in a blank room, pulling in the sales team and the product team, and just agonizing over the overarching business objective for Q3.
And then mapping exactly how email specifically supports that objective across like a 6-month customer journey.
Yeah, that is excruciatingly hard work.
It really is.
Yeah.
It requires confronting failure, admitting what you don't know, and actually achieving cross-departmental alignment, which nobody wants to do. So we just default to tweaking the button color.
Right. And to illustrate the danger of bypassing that hard strategic work, the author shares this really vivid personal analogy about architecture in the book.
Oh, the house renovation.
Yes. She undertook this massive renovation of an 1890 Victorian-era terrace house in London. Now, Victorian houses are notoriously dark. They feature these tiny, boxy, compartmentalized rooms.
Right. Very closed off.
And she wanted the exact opposite. She wanted open spaces, natural light, bringing the outdoors inside.
Okay, an 1890s London renovation sounds like a structural nightmare just waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Like if you start messing with load-bearing walls in a building that old without a solid plan, the whole thing comes down.
Precisely. So to achieve her vision, she didn't just hire a crew of builders, hand them sledgehammers, and say, hey, start knocking down walls until it feels airy.
Yeah, that would be catastrophic.
It would be. First, she hired an architect. The architect drew up a comprehensive blueprint. The strategy was established. Redesign the structural flow to make the garden a natural extension of the living space.
Makes sense?
And only after that strategy was locked in, signed off on, and pressure tested did the contractors actually come in to execute the myriad of tactical decisions like where to route the plumbing or what materials to use.
But when we look at our digital marketing programs, we are constantly skipping the architect. We buy a new email service provider, and we immediately start swinging sledgehammers.
Swinging blindly.
Yeah, we trigger an onboarding sequence over here, a win-back campaign over there, without any overarching blueprint connecting them.
And that is exactly why performance stagnates. So, to stop swinging blindly, the text says we have to adopt a strict strategy-first hierarchy.
Right.
The author outlines this non-negotiable top-down framework. It consists of 6 sequential parts, and the rule is you cannot skip a step and you cannot reverse the order.
I love frameworks like this.
Okay, what are the steps?
Step 1 is the business goal.
Yep.
Step 2 is the objective. Step 3 is the strategy. Step 4 is tactics. Step 5 is technology. And step 6 is measurement, or KPIs.
Okay, wait. Let's pause there because people use the word strategy and tactic interchangeably all the time.
Oh, constantly. Which creates massive confusion in marketing departments. So let's make this really concrete for the listener. Walk us through a real-world scenario using this exact 6-step framework so we can see the clear distinction between each level.
Okay, let's tackle something universal. Let's do cart abandonment.
Perfect. Because a lot of marketers just start at step 4 or 5 for that.
Yeah.
They log in, they see a new abandoned cart trigger template, and they just say, let's turn this on.
Right. So how should it actually look if we start at the true top?
Okay. Step 1, the business goal. This is the macro destination. Let's say the big goal is to increase customer lifetime value, or CLV, across the entire company.
Broad, directional, ambitious. I like it.
Exactly. Then step 2, the objective. This is where we make it measurable and specific to our channel. So the objective might be to recoup 20% of potentially lost sales from abandoned carts over the next 2 quarters.
Okay, now we have a very clear target, 20%.
Yes. So step 3 is the strategy. And this is the crucial pivot point you mentioned.
Right. How is a strategy fundamentally different from the tactic that comes next?
So the strategy is the overarching psychological approach. It's the philosophy of how we are going to achieve the objective.
The how and why.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
in this case, our strategy might be, we will persuade customers to return and complete their checkout by actively removing friction, offering elite customer service, and addressing their specific purchasing anxieties.
Okay, which naturally dictates step 4, the tactic.
Yes. The tactic is the specific maneuver used to execute that strategy.
Oh.
So to offer service and address anxiety, our tactic is a well-timed 3-part email sequence rather than just a single blast.
Got it. And then we finally hit step 5, technology.
Right. Now we use our automation platform to set up the behavioral triggers, the delay timers and the dynamic content blocks, pulling in their specific cart items.
And step 6, measurement. We analyze the KPIs. But we don't just look at open rates, right?
Yeah.
We look at click-throughs to the checkout page and actual completed purchases to see if we hit that 20% objective we defined back in step 2.
See, when you lay it out like that, it creates a perfectly aligned chain of logic. Every single action is tethered directly to the macro business goal.
It really is. But, okay, here is the piece of data from the source material that absolutely floored me. Are you ready?
You mean?
55% of marketers do not work with a documented, written strategy. More than half the industry.
It's wild.
I mean, are you telling me these massive brands are just flying blind?
Well, they aren't necessarily flying blind on a day-to-day basis, but they are relying entirely on tribal knowledge.
Ah, tribal knowledge.
Yeah, so they might have a vague, sort of implicit strategy floating around in the head of the VP of marketing or a senior manager, but nothing is formalized on paper.
Which is an existential threat to business continuity, if you think about it. I mean, think about the modern turnover rate in marketing roles today.
Whoa, it's incredibly high.
Right. So if your lead strategist gets poached by a competitor and the strategy only existed in their brain, all of that logic literally walks out the door with them.
Exactly. And the team left behind. They don't know why the 3-part sequence was built the way it was. They just see the automated workflow.
So they end up spending, what, the next 6 months and half their budget just trying to reverse engineer the logic rather than actually optimizing or scaling it?
It's an immense, completely avoidable waste of capital. A written strategy forces you to create a cohesive ecosystem for the customer.
Yes.
It prevents you from sending a scattered, fractured series of one-off campaigns that just confuse the recipient, because every single message has to justify its existence against the written blueprint.
So we have our blueprint. We know we need to align our tactics with our business goals. But what happens when that brilliant top-down strategy collides with an actual human inbox?
That's where things get interesting.
Because if the strategy is just, extract as much money from this user as quickly as possible, the best architecture in the world is going to fail. Which brings us to arguably the most paradigm-shifting concept in this entire deep dive.
Okay, let's hear it.
Customer service is the marketing mindset.
This is a massive shift. It's a radical departure from traditional direct response marketing.
Completely.
The author argues that we have to fundamentally reevaluate the very nature of the emails we send. We need to transition from marketing to the consumer to marketing for the consumer.
Marketing for them.
Right. This is what she calls customer experience email marketing, or CX email marketing. It operates on this core premise that every single message sent by a brand is fundamentally a customer service message.
Okay, let me push back on that a bit, because I can hear the sales directors listening to this right now just rolling their eyes.
I'm sure they are.
Right. We operate in a reality of quarterly earnings, aggressive revenue targets, shareholder expectations. Doesn't a business eventually need to just push a sale?
I hear that a lot.
How do you balance being endlessly helpful with actually hitting your numbers? Like, isn't there a severe risk of just becoming a free information desk that never actually closes a deal?
That is a very common objection, but I think it completely misunderstands the psychology of purchasing behavior.
How so?
Being helpful isn't about avoiding the sale or being timid. It is about facilitating the sale efficiently by eliminating the roadblocks in the buyer's mind.
Okay, keep going.
Think about it. Transactions are simply two sides of the exact same coin.
Right.
The brand has an objective, right? They need to generate revenue. But the customer also have an objective. They have a problem in their life, they need a product or service to solve it, but they are experiencing anxiety.
Like, will this fit? Is the quality good? Can I return it?
Exactly. So when a brand aggressively pushes a hard sell, when they just scream "BY now" with a giant red countdown timer, they are completely ignoring the customer's objective and only focusing on their own.
They are essentially asking the customer to ignore their own anxiety and just hand over the credit card.
Right. And that creates massive friction. But when a brand focuses its marketing entirely on helping the customer achieve their objective by answering those unasked questions, providing reassurance, demonstrating value, and removing doubts, the customer inherently helps the brand achieve its objective of revenue.
So the aggressive revenue target is actually met faster when you remove the psychological friction for the buyer.
Exactly. Let's actually apply this CX mindset to the abandoned cart scenario we built earlier.
Okay, let's do it. So the old school hard sell approach would be 3 automated emails that just say, hey, you left this in your cart, buy it now before it sells out.
Very aggressive.
It's entirely focused on the brand's desire for the transaction. So how does the copy and structure change when we adopt the customer service mindset?
It changes the tone and the utility of the relationship completely. So in a CX-driven sequence, email 1 isn't a demand. It's a helpful, low-pressure reminder.
Like, hey, looks like you got distracted.
Yeah, your items are saved here for whenever you're ready. And it might include a high-quality image of the item, just to remind them why they liked it in the first place.
It's respectful of their time and their attention.
Right. Then, email 2 becomes pure, unadulterated service. You assume the abandonment wasn't due to a lack of interest, but due to a point of friction.
Oh, that's a great reframe.
Yeah, maybe they got confused about the shipping costs. Or maybe they weren't sure about the sizing chart. So email 2 doesn't push the sale, it provides troubleshooting.
It highlights the easy return policy, maybe links to the FAQ page.
Exactly. And provides a direct, easy way to contact a human customer support rep. You are proactively trying to identify and remove the hurdle that stopped the checkout.
You are doing all the heavy lifting for them.
Yes. And the author emphasizes that this is where marketers frequently fail. They don't do the hard work of translating their product's features into customer benefits.
Features versus benefits, that's a classic trap.
It is. Because if you just blast out a list of technical specs, you're forcing the customer to expend cognitive energy figuring out why those specs actually matter to their life.
Give me an example of that translation.
Okay, let's say you are selling B2B project management software. The feature is automated task dependency routing.
Sounds very technical.
Right. If your email just touts that feature, the user has to stop, define what that means, and apply it to their own workflow.
Too much work.
But if your email translates that into a benefit like, never send another "what's the status" email to your team again, you are immediately serving them.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that immediately clicks.
You are addressing a core pain point in their day. You aren't just selling software, you are selling the relief of getting their time back.
That is a brilliant filter. The next time you are drafting a campaign, you really need to audit every single line of copy and ask, am I making the customer do the mental math here, or am I clearly serving them the benefit?
Exactly. Because cognitive load is the enemy of conversion. If they have to think too hard about why they need it, they will just delete the email.
Which transitions perfectly into how we actually operationalize this philosophy on a Tuesday morning when the inbox is full, your boss is yelling, and the pressure is on.
Yeah, theory is great, but execution is everything.
Right. We understand the 6-step hierarchy and we understand the CX mindset. But for immediate ground-level implementation, the source material distills this overarching plan into a highly linear, 3-step actionable framework.
And the concept of linear thinking is vital here.
It is. The author actually shares a highly memorable story about learning the value of linear thinking the hard way.
Oh, the bicycle story.
Yes. When she was 9 years old, she got a brand new bicycle. But it wasn't a standard bike. It had coaster brakes, the kind where you have to physically pedal backward to engage the brake mechanism rather than just squeezing a hand lever.
I remember those. And she lived at the top of a very steep hill.
Right. So one day, she decides she is going to ride down this massive hill. But instead of engaging in linear thinking, meaning instead of taking a moment to manually line up the pedals into the correct horizontal position so she would have the leverage to push backward and brake before she started moving, she just hopped on the seat and let gravity take over.
Which is a terrifying scenario.
Yeah.
Because once momentum takes over, if your pedals are in the wrong vertical position, you physically cannot rotate them backward to stop.
Exactly. She had no leverage. She flew down the hill, completely out of control, and crashed head-on into a brick garden wall. It's a painful, visceral lesson in why process matters. If you don't line up your steps before you start moving fast, you will crash.
That is such a good analogy for marketing. Jumping straight into a complex automation platform without lining up your strategic steps is the exact same thing. You are just accelerating toward a brick wall.
So what is this three-step linear framework that keeps our marketing programs from crashing?
Step one is to create a SMART objective. We're all familiar with the acronym, but it really bears strict application here. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
So you have to anchor the entire campaign to a definitive metric.
Yes, like raise email revenue by 20% in Q4 by reducing abandoned cart drop-off.
No ambiguity whatsoever.
None. Then step two is crafting the supporting strategy. How, specifically, will we achieve that SMART objective using our CX mindset?
So that would be use a sequenced email flow to persuade customers to complete checkout by proactively answering shipping FAQs and removing sizing doubts.
Perfect. And then step three is creating the tactics using the technology. Build a three-part automated trigger series spaced 24 hours apart, utilizing dynamic content blocks to display the abandoned items alongside customer reviews.
What is so powerful about this three-step linear process is that it acts as an absolute filter against chaos.
Yes, it is a shield.
Because in any corporate environment, there is a constant barrage of quote-unquote good ideas.
Oh, tell me about it.
A stakeholder comes to you and says, hey, I saw a competitor doing this interactive scratch-off discount in their emails. We should definitely do that.
That happens every single week. The classic shiny object syndrome.
And without a framework, you either argue with them subjectively and look like a jerk, or you cave and waste a week building a scratch-off email.
Right. But with this linear framework, you take all the guesswork and the emotion out of the conversation. You run their proposed tactic through the filter.
You ask, does a scratch-off discount directly map back to our documented SMART objective of reducing abandoned cart drop-off by removing sizing doubts?
And the answer is usually no. It's a gimmick.
Exactly. If it doesn't map back, you don't send it.
The framework empowers marketers to say no, objectively and strategically. It protects the integrity of the entire program and ensures that everyone from the junior copywriter to the data analyst to the VP is completely aligned on the why behind every single send.
It transforms marketing from a reactive, order-taking department into a proactive, strategic powerhouse.
Couldn't have said it better.
Okay, so we have our overarching architecture. We've adopted a service-first psychology. We have our three-step filter to prevent us from crashing into the wall. Now, and literally only now, are we finally allowed to talk about the technology.
Final.
How do we navigate the vendor landscape once the blueprint is firmly in hand?
The source material provides some really critical guidance on evaluating technology. And it starts with a rather surprising first step.
Which is?
Before you even look outward at the market, you must thoroughly audit your current setup. You have to identify the missed opportunities within the tools you are already paying for.
And this brings up another mind-boggling statistic from the research.
Yes. The data reveals that 51% of marketers are actively using only half, or even fewer, of the features that come standard on their current email platforms.
That is insane. More than half the industry is utilizing less than half of their tech stack's capabilities. Yet, if you go on LinkedIn or Twitter, you see marketers constantly complaining about their ESPs.
All the time.
They are initiating these massive, painful 6-month platform migrations looking for a silver bullet. We are blaming the tools for our own lack of strategic implementation.
It is a classic deflection of responsibility.
It is the equivalent of, well, going back to our earlier analogy, buying a high-performance Formula One car, realizing you don't actually know how to drive a manual transmission, and instead of taking the time to learn how the gearbox works, you blame the car for stalling.
Right.
And you just go buy a completely different multi-million-dollar race car, hoping it will somehow drive itself.
That is a perfect analogy. The new platform isn't going to fix a lack of capability. It is just going to be a more expensive, more complex vehicle that you still don't know how to drive.
Right.
Which brings us to the author's second major tip. You must know exactly where you want to go and when you want to get there before engaging a vendor.
So what does that look like practically during an audit?
It means mapping out your data requirements comprehensively. What specific first-party data do you actually need to collect to execute your CX strategy?
Like, do we need their birth date or just their location?
Exactly. What level of personalization is truly necessary to remove friction for your specific buyer? What kind of content dynamic blocks will you need? You must define all these requirements based on your three-step linear plan.
Which leads to the ultimate golden rule of procurement. Let your written strategy dictate your technology needs.
Always.
Never, under any circumstances, let a tech vendor's flashy sales demo dictate your marketing strategy.
Because vendor demos are designed to dazzle. They will show you incredible, hyper-advanced features like real-time geofencing or predictive weather-based content rendering.
And it looks amazing on a screen.
It looks incredible.
Yeah.
But if real-time geofencing does not map directly back to your documented smart objectives, it is irrelevant.
Right.
If you buy the platform for that feature, you will end up distorting your entire strategy just to justify the cost of the tool.
You completely lose control of your own program. When you lead with a documented strategy, you wield technology as a precise lever to elevate the customer's experience. But when you lead with the technology, you inevitably create a disjointed, chaotic experience because the tools are operating without a coherent human purpose.
And if we pull all of these threads together, from Kath Pei's deep dive into the holistic mindset, a very clear unifying insight emerges.
Let's synthesize this for everyone listening. We've covered the danger of the sledgehammer, the vital importance of the written blueprint, the paradigm shift of customer service, and the Formula One trap of unused technology.
So, the true soul of this chapter, and arguably the secret to unlocking the channel entirely, is the realization that email marketing's massive potential is never unlocked by the latest algorithm.
Never.
It is never unlocked by a slicker drag-and-drop builder. And it is certainly never unlocked by a relentless, aggressive buy-now drumbeat that ignores the consumer's actual needs.
The true power of email is unlocked by a structured, written, strategy-first blueprint. A blueprint that fundamentally shifts your perspective, treating every single communication from your brand not as a demand for a transaction, but as a genuine, empathetic act of customer service.
Yes. Because when you design your marketing to help the customer win, your business inevitably wins.
It is about marrying timeless psychological principles of service with modern technological scale. You absolutely need the technology to execute efficiently.
Of course.
But the technology must serve the strategy, and the strategy must always, unfailingly, serve the customer.
Couldn't agree more.
So, you now possess the ultimate strategic architecture to serve your audience, remove their friction, and drive sustainable revenue. But there is a glaring question remaining.
Oh, there is?
Once you launch this beautiful service-oriented strategy, how do you actually measure if it is working?
That's the real test.
How do you ensure you aren't being fooled by vanity metrics like, say, inflated open rates that look fantastic on a boardroom dashboard but do absolutely nothing for your actual bottom line?
It's a huge problem in the industry right now.
It is, and that is the exact challenge we are tackling in our next deep dive. Until then, I challenge you. Pull up the very last email campaign you sent, take a hard, objective look at the copy, and ask yourself, who was this really serving? So what if the numbers you check every single morning to measure your business's success are actually lying to you?
Oh, there's a terrifying thought.
Right. Or, I mean, worse. What if they're answering completely the wrong question? Imagine logging into your dashboard, seeing this huge spike in engagement, and you feel like you're just winning.
Yeah, you're celebrating.
Exactly, but then at the end of the month, you find out your actual revenue is completely flat.
And, you know, it's a scenario that plays out in boardrooms and home offices like every single day.
It really does.
Because we operate in this digital landscape where we aren't starving for data anymore. We are literally drowning in it.
Yeah, there's a metric for everything now.
Right. So the real danger for you as a business owner or a marketer listening to this isn't that you lack metrics. The danger is that you're worshiping the wrong ones.
You're letting the wrong numbers drive the car.
Exactly. You let them dictate your strategy, and then you sit there wondering why the bottom line refuses to budge.
And that tension is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We're looking at Chapter 3 of Kath Pei's book, Holistic Email Marketing, which is entirely focused on metrics and measurement.
It's a huge topic.
It is, but what's brilliant about how she approaches this is that she doesn't start with, like, a complex spreadsheet. She actually starts with this deeply human story about math phobia.
I love that part. It's so relatable.
Right. She describes being 14 years old, working her first job at a store, and just being absolutely terrified of the cash register.
Because she had to do the math in her head.
Yes. She was so anxious about having to calculate the exact change that she actively hid behind the delicatessen counter just to avoid the numbers.
And I mean, that anxiety is universal. So
Mhm.
many professionals just hit a brick wall the moment the conversation turns to analytics or data.
Oh, for sure. People just shut down.
But she notes that in her 20s, something fundamental shifted for her. The numbers suddenly made sense.
And not because she went back to school for, like, advanced calculus, right?
No, not at all. It was because she learned how to make those numbers work for her. She stopped seeing them as a test. She was failing. And started seeing them as tools to uncover the truth about her business.
Okay, let's explore that shift because it feels like the necessary first step before we even look at a dashboard.
This is the foundation, yeah.
Because if metrics are just units of measurement to track how well a program is performing, they still need context. Without context, raw data is basically useless.
It's just a pile of numbers.
Right. Think about it like the dashboard of your car. If you look down and see the RPM gauge hitting, say, 5,000, that is a hard objective metric. It's data.
But is it good data or bad data?
Exactly. If you're trying to merge onto a busy highway, higher PMs mean you're accelerating successfully. You're doing what you need to do.
Yeah, the car is doing its job.
But if you're sitting in a parking lot with the car in neutral, 5,000 RPMs means your engine is about to blow up.
Right. The number itself didn't change at all.
No, but the context completely altered the reality of the situation.
And in business, your overarching strategy acts as that context. The author insists that anyone making data-driven decisions must cultivate this air. She calls it an insane curiosity.
Insane curiosity. I like that.
Yeah, because you can't simply open a reporting tool on a Friday afternoon, see a 20% open rate on an email campaign, type that into a spreadsheet, and log off for the weekend.
Which, let's be honest, is what most people do.
Oh, absolutely. But you have to interrogate the data. What does that 20% actually mean for your specific quarterly revenue goals?
Right. Does it indicate that a new subject line strategy worked? Or
Or do you
it,
mean your list is shrinking and only the hyper-engaged people are left? You have to constantly ask why and what.
which brings us to, I think, the most critical distinction in the entire chapter. It's the way we categorize these numbers so we can actually interrogate them properly.
The big divide.
Yeah, the author draws a very sharp line between what she calls process metrics and objective metrics.
This is where people get tripped up.
So let's break it down. Process metrics measure the mechanical activity happening within a specific marketing channel. So in email, this is your total open rate, your unique open rate, the click rate.
Bounces, unsubscribes, spam complaints, all of that.
Right. They're surface level indicators of immediate action.
Yeah, process metrics track the mechanism itself, whereas objective metrics, on the other hand, measure the actual business goals.
The stuff that actually matters.
Exactly, the numbers that keep the lights on and pay the salaries. We're talking total campaign revenue, revenue per email, revenue per subscriber.
Conversions, average order size.
Right, or the volume of newly generated qualified leads. Objective metrics measure the ultimate outcome you were hoping to achieve when you decided to spend the money and time on the campaign in the first place.
But wait, hold on. I want to push back on this a little
Yeah,
bit.
sure, go for it.
Because if I log into almost any standard entry-level marketing software right now, the process metrics like the opens and the clicks, they are in massive, bold font right on the home screen.
They are literally the first thing you see.
Right. The software is practically screaming at me that these are the most important numbers. So are you suggesting that the default design of the tools we use is actually biasing us toward the wrong data?
100%.
Yeah.
The design of those platforms absolutely creates a cognitive bias.
Oh.
And it is the exact trap the author warns about. Using process metrics to judge the ultimate success of a campaign is the single most common and honestly the most dangerous mistake marketers make.
But if millions of people open my email, isn't the software right to celebrate that as a massive win?
Well, the platforms highlight process metrics because they are really easy to track in real time, but they only tell a fraction of the story.
How so? Walk me through the mechanics of why a high open rate doesn't just automatically equal success.
Okay, consider a physical retail storefront on a really busy street. Process metric is the equivalent of a motion sensor on the sidewalk, tracking how many pedestrians stop to look at your window display.
Okay, so tracking eyeballs.
Right. Now, if you put a giant slashing neon sign in the window, your open rate, the people looking, will skyrocket.
Makes sense.
And that tells you the sign is effective at generating attention. But an objective metric tracks the cash register.
I see where you're going.
If 1,000 people stop to stare at the neon sign, but absolutely no one walks through the door to buy a product, your business is failing. The window display was a distraction, not a driver of revenue.
Right. Tracking engagement over time is useful for monitoring the health of your audience, but it does not tell you if you met your financial targets. You cannot take foot traffic to the bank.
You really can't.
So the practical takeaway for you listening is that you must run two parallel tracks of measurement. You use the process metrics to understand the behavior of the audience and troubleshoot the mechanics of your messaging.
Exactly.
But you use the objective metrics to measure the actual success of the business. And this completely changes how you report to leadership.
Oh, it changes everything. If your CEO asks for an update on closing the fourth quarter revenue gap, you cannot hand them a graph showing a 2% increase in click rates.
They don't care about clicks.
Right. You're providing an answer to a question they didn't ask, using data that doesn't prove the goal was met.
Okay, so to prove just how misleading these process metrics can be when you look at them in a vacuum, the author provides this fascinating analysis of the resend strategy.
Oh, this is such a good example.
It really is. It's a real-world scenario that genuinely terrifies marketers, and it perfectly illustrates the danger of worshiping the wrong numbers.
The fear of the resend is so real in the industry.
Explain that fear. Why are marketers so afraid of it?
There's this pervasive, almost superstitious fear that if you send an email and a subscriber ignores it, you must never ever send it to them again.
You're bothering them.
Exactly. The assumption is that silence equals a hard rejection. And so resending the message will trigger this massive wave of unsubscribes, furious spam complaints, and just severe damage to the brand's reputation.
But it's a fear based entirely on anxiety, not data.
Right. So to test this, the author tracked 3 distinct real-world resend campaigns.
What did they actually do?
A company sent a promotional email, waited a few days, and then sent a slightly modified version, basically featuring a new subject line, specifically to the segment of the audience that didn't open the first one.
Okay, so the non-openers. And when we look at the process metrics for these campaigns, they actually seem to validate all the fears.
Yeah, at first glance.
Right. The open rates and click rates on the second email were noticeably lower than the first. So if you were only looking at that dashboard, you would immediately conclude that the resend was annoying people and performing poorly.
But here is where it gets interesting. That catastrophic fallout everyone was afraid of. It never happened.
The unsubscribes didn't spike?
Not at all. The unsubscribe rates barely moved. We are talking about fractions of a single percentage point. The audience didn't revolt.
Okay, so no damage done.
Right. But more importantly, when the author analyzed the objective metrics, the narrative flipped completely. Across the 3 campaigns, actual transactions increased by between 34 and 41%.
Wait, transactions went up that much?
Yes. And total revenue for the campaigns increased by 36 to 41%. The business literally made significantly more money by sending the second email.
That is mind-blowing. And the conversion rate is where the underlying mechanics of this really shocked me. Let's look at the third campaign she studied.
Yeah, let's break that one down.
The conversion rate, meaning the percentage of people who clicked and then actually went on to buy the product, was 1.99% on the original email.
Which is a very standard, respectable number.
Very solid. But on the resend, sent to the people who supposedly ignored the brand, the conversion rate jumped to 7.76%.
It's incredible.
That is a 390% lift, a near 400% increase in the rate of purchase from the exact group of people the process metrics suggested we should leave alone.
Exactly. If that marketing team had panicked over the lower open rate of the second email, they would have just abandoned the strategy and walked away from a massive surge in revenue.
Okay, we have to unpack the psychology behind why this happens because it goes against all our basic instincts.
It really does.
Why would a consumer ignore a message on Tuesday, but then eagerly buy from the exact same promotion on Thursday?
Well, the author points to different shopping personalities. Consumers generally fall into 4 categories. You have competitive shoppers who want to win the best deal immediately.
Okay.
You have spontaneous shoppers who make emotional purchases based on excitement. You have humanistic shoppers who need to feel a connection to the brand story.
Right, the relationship builders.
And finally, methodical shoppers who require time to research and compare before they buy anything.
So a single subject line might only appeal to one of those personalities.
Precisely. If your first subject line emphasizes a flash sale, it captures the competitive and spontaneous buyers.
Yeah.
But the methodical buyer, they completely ignore it because they aren't ready to be rushed.
That makes total sense.
Right. So when you resend the email days later with a subject line focused on top-rated reviews, you suddenly capture the methodical buyer. You haven't annoyed them. You have finally spoken their language.
Wow. And furthermore, we have to consider the cognitive load of the modern consumer.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone is so busy.
Right. Someone might have seen your first email while they were, boarding a crowded train or dealing with a crying toddler. They didn't ignore it out of malice.
No, they ignored it because they lacked the cognitive bandwidth to process a purchase in that exact second.
So the reason simply catches them when they're sitting on their couch, relaxed with their credit card nearby.
Exactly. So the lesson here is, do not let the fear of a fractional increase in unsubscribes stop you from generating a 40% bump in revenue.
You have to let the objective data make the decision, not your anxiety over a vanity metric. If the numbers that measure your business goals are pointing up, that is literally the only signal that matters.
Well said. And now that we have established this fundamental difference between process and objective metrics, we need to upgrade the actual toolkit.
Yes, let's get into the weeds.
Because looking at basic opens and clicks just isn't enough, even for troubleshooting. The author outlines 8 advanced metrics that force you to look deeper into the mechanics of your marketing.
And what I love is that rather than just a random list, these metrics actually map perfectly to the chronological journey of a campaign.
They do. It follows the user's path.
So let's walk through that journey. The first step after the subject line does its job is the email body itself. And for that, we use metric 1, the click-to-open rate.
The CTR, yeah.
Right, not the standard click rate, but the percentage of people who actually opened the email who then went on to click. Why is isolating this specific fraction so vital for a business?
Because it isolates the performance of your creative content. Think about it. Your overall open rate is entirely dependent on the subject line and the sender name.
Right, getting them in the door.
Exactly. But the moment the email is opened, the subject line's job is over. It's done. The click-to-open rate tells you if the body of your email, the images, the copywriting, the layout, the actual offer delivered on the promise you made to get them to open it in the first place.
Oh, I see. So if you have a massive open rate but a dismal click-to-open rate, it means your subject line basically wrote a check that your content couldn't cash.
Exactly. It was clickbait. People were intrigued, they looked inside, felt misled or underwhelmed, and they just left. It pinpoints the exact point of failure in your creative process.
Which takes all the guesswork out of design meetings. You don't have to argue over whether the email was good. The click-to-open rate tells you if it was effective.
It ends the debate instantly.
Okay, so once they click, we move to the next stage of the journey, which is metric 2, the conversion rate.
Right, the holy grail for many.
This is the click that leads to a purchase, a download, or whatever the goal is. But the author argues we need to slice this data much thinner. We shouldn't just look at the blended conversion rate of the whole list.
That's too broad.
We need to segment it by the life cycle of the subscriber. So what is the conversion rate of someone who joined the list yesterday versus someone who has been reading your emails for 3 years?
Because segmenting by life cycle reveals the health of your brand loyalty. Well, are new people buying readily because of a welcome discount, but then they never buy again? Or do your long-term subscribers convert at a higher rate because you have spent years building trust?
So if your long-term subscribers stop converting, your retention strategy is failing.
Exactly. Crucially, the author notes we have to check back on this conversion metric a month after the campaign launches.
Okay, I found that fascinating. Why wait a month? If I send a flash sale on a Friday, shouldn't I just measure the weekend revenue and be done with it?
You should definitely measure the weekend, but you cannot stop there because that completely ignores how human beings actually use their digital spaces.
Right.
People use their email inboxes as filing cabinets and to-do lists. A consumer might open your email on a Tuesday, realize they want the product, but decide they need to wait until they get paid on the following Friday.
So they just leave the email sitting in their inbox.
Exactly. If you only measure conversions for 48 hours, you completely miss the long-tail revenue. You are artificially depressing your own success metrics because you're demanding immediate action from a consumer base that often delays gratification.
Which perfectly sets up metric 3, device type. Are your subscribers reading your messages on a mobile phone or a desktop computer? Are they on iOS or Android?
It sounds like an IT issue, right?
It really does. At first glance, this sounds like data only a developer would care about. Why does the specific operating system of my customer's phone matter to my bottom line?
Because over half of all emails globally are now opened on mobile devices. Let's look at the mechanics of this. Imagine your data shows that 70% of your mobile users are opening the email and they're clicking through to your website.
Okay, so good engagement so far.
Right, but then they're abandoning their shopping carts at a rate 3 times higher than your desktop users.
Oh, wow. That's a huge discrepancy.
You have just identified a massive leak in your revenue pipe. It tells you that your mobile checkout process is likely creating intense friction.
Like maybe the buy now button requires zooming in to tap because it's too small.
Exactly. Or the page takes 6 seconds to load on a cellular connection, or the credit card input fields don't trigger the numerical keyboard on an iPhone. Knowing the device type turns a vague sense of low sales into a highly specific, solvable engineering task.
So your mobile design could be actively turning away willing buyers, and you wouldn't know unless you looked at the device metric.
Exactly.
So think of your customer's journey like a road trip down a long highway. You have the email open, the click, the landing page arrival, the cart addition, and the final checkout.
Right, lots of steps.
Tracking the device type is part of a broader metric the author calls Metric 4, the email journey. This is about monitoring the fallout points across that entire highway.
The email journey is a mindset shift. It's moving from looking at single events to looking at the continuous flow of traffic.
Explain that flow.
If 1,000 people click the link in your email, but your analytics show that 900 of them leave your website after less than 2 seconds, the email was actually an incredible success.
Wait, the email was a success, but they left.
Yeah, the email did its job perfectly. It got the click. The landing page is the failure.
I see.
It is the equivalent of finding out exactly which pothole on a 50-mile highway is blowing out everyone's tires. You don't waste budget repaving the entire road. You send a crew to fill that specific pothole.
That is such a great analogy. By tracking the journey step by step, you know whether you need to fire your email copywriter or hire a better web developer.
Exactly. You find the exact point of friction.
Now, as we monitor this journey, we also have to monitor the underlying foundation, which is Metric 5, contacts lost.
Yes, list hygiene.
This means tracking your unsubscribe rate, bounce rate, and spam complaints over a long period. But earlier, during the recent discussion, we established that we shouldn't panic over unsubscribes. Why is it suddenly a key metric?
Well, we established that you shouldn't panic over a fractional bump from a single campaign. But tracking contacts lost over the macro, long-term timeline is entirely different.
Okay, so looking at the trend.
Right. It measures the structural integrity of your database. If your unsubscribe rate is slowly and steadily trending upward month after month, it means something is fundamentally rotting in your strategy.
Rotting? Like what?
Your content has become irrelevant, or your sending frequency is exhausting the audience, or maybe you are acquiring low-quality leads who never actually wanted to be there in the first place.
I see. So it's the difference between losing a few hairs in the shower and slowly going bald.
A vivid, if slightly unsettling, analogy, but yes, exactly accurate.
It paints a picture.
It does. And tracking this churn rate also tells you the exact mathematical baseline for your acquisition strategy.
What do you mean by baseline?
Well, if you lose 500 subscribers a month to natural attrition, you must acquire 501 new subscribers just to achieve the smallest possible margin of growth. If you don't know your contacts loss metric, you have no idea if your list is actually growing or slowly suffocating.
Wow. Okay. That is vital. And that brings us to metric 6. This is the heavyweight. This is the metric that changes how the C-suite views your entire department. ROI, return on investment.
The big one.
We throw this acronym around constantly in business, but the author breaks down the exact mathematical formula, and it is vital to internalize the mechanics of it. Let's walk through this slowly.
Sure.
The formula is your total revenue generated minus your costs. That gives you your net profit.
Right.
You then divide that net profit by your costs and multiply by 100 to get a percentage.
Let's apply real numbers to that to see the impact, because it's powerful.
Okay, let's do it.
Assume you run a quarterly campaign that generates $100,000 in total revenue. The costs associated with that campaign, the software subscription, the graphic designer's hourly rate, the copywriter's fee, let's say they total $2,500.
Okay, so following the formula, 100,000 in revenue minus the 2,500 in cost leaves a net profit of $97,500.
Correct.
I take that 97.5 divided by my initial 2.5 cost, which gives me 39.
Keep going.
Multiply by 100, and my ROI is 3,900%. 39 times my money back.
Exactly. And the reason that specific calculation is so crucial is about translation.
Translation.
Yes. When you walk into a meeting with the executive board or your investors, and you need to ask for a budget increase to hire, say, a new marketing automation specialist, You do not talk about click-to-open rates.
They would just stare blankly at you.
All right, you present that 3,900% ROI. When you can mathematically prove that every single dollar the company gives you returns $39 in net profit, the conversation changes instantly.
Email stops being viewed as a necessary administrative expense and is suddenly recognized as the highest yielding investment vehicle in the company.
Exactly. It forces leadership to take the channel seriously.
And to prove that value consistently, you need metric 7, open reach and click reach.
Right, looking at the bigger picture.
We talked about reach during the recent campaigns, but this is applying it on a macro level. Instead of looking at the open rate of a single newsletter on a Tuesday, you look at the entire quarter. Over a 3-month period, what percentage of your total list opened or clicked at least one email?
It's a much healthier way to look at it.
Why is this quarterly view a more accurate reflection of the business than the daily view?
Because it measures the true size of your active audience. Think about it. If you have a database of 100,000 people and your daily open rate hovers around 15%, it is very easy to feel defeated.
Yeah, it feels like 85,000 people are actively ignoring you every single day.
Right. But if you measure your open reach over a quarter, you might find that 60% of your list has engaged at least once.
So 60,000 unique human beings are actually checking in.
Exactly. They might only open the emails that are highly relevant to their specific needs, or they might only have time to engage once a month. But they are alive, they are listening, and they are brand aware.
So the quarterly reach metric prevents you from making drastic, panic-driven changes to your strategy based on the illusion that your audience is dead.
It saves you from sabotaging your own program, yeah.
Which leads us to the final and perhaps most paradigm-shifting advanced metric, metric 8, the value of an email address.
This one is huge for budgeting.
The also provides a formula to determine the literal exact monetary value of a single subscriber. The formula is the average time an arson stays on your list in years, multiplied by your total annual email revenue, divided by your average list size.
Let's plug in the numbers to make it concrete.
Okay, let's say a subscriber stays on your list for an average of 3 years before unsubscribing. Your company generates $700,000 a year directly from email marketing, and your total list size averages 95,000 people.
So 3 years multiplied by $700,000 equals $2.1 million in lifetime value for the entire list.
Divide that 2.1 million by the 95,000 individuals on the list, and you get $22.10. Every single email address on that list is worth $22.10 to your business.
That is a very powerful number to know.
It is, but I have to push back here because revenue isn't guaranteed. It fluctuates based on seasonality, product launches, economic downturns. Is it dangerous to assign a static dollar amount to a human being's email address when their future purchasing behavior is entirely unpredictable?
Well, it would be dangerous if you were using it to project guaranteed cash flow for the next month, but that isn't the purpose of the metric.
Then what is the purpose?
The value of an email address is an average baseline designed to dictate your acquisition strategy. It removes the emotion and the guesswork from your marketing budget.
Walk me through how that applies practically.
Okay, if you do the math and determine an email address is worth $22 to your business over its lifetime, you now have a hard ceiling for your acquisition costs.
Like how much I can spend on ads.
Exactly. How much are you willing to spend on Facebook ads to acquire a new subscriber? How much budget should you allocate to a pop-up sweepstakes on your website?
Oh, I see.
If you're spending $5 in ad spend to acquire an email address that you mathematically know will eventually yield $22, you have built a money printing machine. You should scale that $5 ad channel as aggressively as your cash flow allows.
Because it's purely profitable.
Right. Conversely, if you're spending $25 to acquire an email address worth $22, you're actively bankrupting the company and need to shut the campaign down immediately. It provides absolute clarity on where to invest.
That completely demystifies the idea of an ad budget. It's just pure math.
It really is.
But this brings up a massive complex challenge that the author addresses head on. We are assigning all this incredible value to the email channel, and we are calculating these precise, massive ROIs.
Right, the numbers look great.
But what happens when email does the heavy lifting to convince a customer to buy, but a completely different marketing channel swoops in at the last second and claims all the credit in the analytics software?
This is the bane of every email marketer's existence.
Yeah.
It is known as the attribution problem.
The attribution problem.
Yeah. Email is a deeply educational relationship-building channel. It builds trust, it explains the product, and it primes the consumer. But it often doesn't get the official tracking credit
Let's trace the mechanics of how that actually happens to a consumer, because honestly, it happens to all of us.
all the time.
You wake up, you're drinking your coffee, and you check your phone, you see an email from a shoe brand you like, you open it, read about their new running shoe, and think, I definitely need those.
But you don't buy them right then.
No, you're rushing to get out the door, so you close your phone. 4 hours later, you are sitting at your desk at work. You decide to buy the shoes. You open a new browser tab on your desktop computer. You type the name of the shoe brand into Google. You click the top search result, and you make the purchase.
And right there is the problem.
In the company's analytics software, Google Search just received 100% of the credit for generating that sale. The email, which actually did all the persuasive work and planted the idea, registers as a 0. It looks like the email failed.
Exactly. And it creates a massive blind spot that leads to terrible resource allocation. A CEO looking at that flawed dashboard might decide to cut the email budget and pour all the money into Google Ads, fundamentally misunderstanding where the actual demand is being generated.
That's terrifying for an email team, so how do we combat this?
To combat this, the author, Kath Pei, suggests running what she calls the halo test. It is a brilliant empirical way to prove the invisible value of your campaigns.
How does a small business, without complex, expensive enterprise tracking software, actually run a halo test?
It is surprisingly simple and requires nothing more than basic spreadsheet subtraction.
Okay, I can do subtraction.
You look at your historical data and identify days where you emailed a massive portion of your total list, say 70% or more.
Okay, a high volume day.
Right. You calculate the total company revenue generated across all channels on those days, not just email revenue, but total store revenue.
Got it.
Then you look at days where you mailed almost no one, perhaps less than 20% of your list, and calculate the total company revenue for those days.
And what are we looking for in the difference?
The difference in total revenue between the high-volume email days and the low-volume email days is the email program's halo effect.
Ah, so that gap is the hidden email revenue.
Exactly. That gap represents the revenue that email generated by acting as a digital billboard, priming the customer to buy through search, direct website visits, or even walking into a physical retail location. It provides undeniable mathematical proof that simply appearing in the inbox drives massive external revenue that standard link tracking will never, ever catch.
It quantifies the unquantifiable.
It really does.
And the author points out another massive flaw in how we measure, which relates directly back to the timeline of human behavior. We touched on this with the 30-day conversion window, but she provides a concrete case study that is just staggering.
Yeah, the tracking window case study.
She cites a campaign where the marketing team measured the revenue success over a standard 4-day window. Over those 4 days, the analytics dashboard showed the email generated 8,326 pounds.
A solid campaign.
Right. They recorded that number, presented it to the boss, and closed the book on the campaign. But when the author went back and looked at the data for that exact same campaign measured over a 3-month period, the total revenue attributed to that single email had grown to 19,022 pounds.
Which is a massive jump.
By artificially cutting off the measurement window after 4 days, those marketers under-recorded their own success by 128%.
It is a tragic error. You have a team doubling their actual targets, generating incredible value for the company, and receiving zero credit for it simply because the reporting software was configured to stop recording on a Thursday.
It all comes back to a fundamental misunderstanding of cognitive load and consumer habits. Marketers tend to project their own urgency onto the customer. I sent an email today, therefore I demand a transaction today.
But consumers don't think like that.
No, consumers do not view their personal inboxes as a command center for immediate commercial action. The author cites a fascinating 2017 report from the Direct Marketing Association that completely upends our assumptions.
Oh, the DMA study. This one is eye-opening.
They asked consumers what their primary top action was when they received a genuinely interesting, relevant email from a brand.
If you ask any marketer, they will assume the #1 answer is, I click the link to learn more.
Of course they would.
But clicking a link was only the second most popular action, chosen by 56% of respondents.
So what was #1?
The #1 action, chosen by 59% of consumers, was saving the email to refer to at a later date.
Saving it.
Yes. The most common reaction to a brilliant piece of email marketing is not a click. It is filing it away for a moment when they have the time, the budget, and the mental energy to actually engage.
The single most common successful outcome doesn't even register on a process metric dashboard. If you are judging your success entirely by what happens in the first 24 hours, you are fighting reality. You have to measure the long tail of human behavior.
And if we synthesize everything we have discussed, if we are tracking objective metrics, calculating long-term ROI, running halo tests to prove attribution, and expanding our tracking windows to account for delayed gratification.
It brings us to the ultimate, inevitable question of the chapter.
A big one.
With all of this data swirling around, what is the single most important metric? Which number is the holy grail?
Everyone wants the silver bullet, right?
They do. But the author's answer is brilliantly pragmatic. The most important metric is simply the one that aligns most directly with your current business objectives.
There is no one metric to rule them all.
Exactly. If your overarching goal this quarter is list hygiene and deliverability, your most important metric might actually be the bounce rate. If your objective is pure end-of-year profit, your most important metric is ROI. The dashboard must conform to the strategy, not the other way around.
And this is how you elevate your role from a task executor to a strategic partner, especially when communicating with the C-suite.
Right, because C-level executives do not care about the mechanics of an open rate.
Not at all. That is your diagnostic tool, not their business outcome. You must learn to translate the value of customer behavior into the language of the boardroom.
So how do you do that?
You highlight where the program is generating top-line revenue, where automation is saving operational costs, and how the strategy is solving high-level business problems.
Nobody has ever been promoted to vice president because they achieved a 30% open rate. You get promoted because you increased quarterly sales by 20%.
Exactly. And to achieve that, your testing methodology must be holistic. You cannot run a split test on a single subject line, look at the open rate for 12 hours, and declare a winner.
That is thinking entirely too small.
Yes, you need to test broad hypotheses across multiple campaigns over an extended period. This provides the statistical significance required to measure how a change affects the deep, lower funnel metrics, like actual conversions and lifetime value.
That makes total sense.
Furthermore, you can leverage external industry benchmarks to accelerate your strategy. Let's look at the mechanics of a cart abandonment lifecycle program.
Okay, walk me through that.
This is an automated system that detects when a user adds an item to their digital cart but leaves the website without triggering the final checkout pixel.
So they almost bought but bailed.
Right. The system waits a designated period, perhaps an hour, and automatically sends an email reminding them of the item, sometimes escalating to a discount in a second email.
A very common tactic.
Now, when you want to build this complex system, you do not go to the board and ask for money to send more emails.
Right, because that sounds like an expense.
Exactly. You take external industry benchmarks data proving that cart abandonment programs typically recover, say, 10% of all lost revenue, and you apply that to your own company's cart abandonment rate.
Oh, so you bring them the math.
Yes. You frame the request as a necessary infrastructure investment to capture a highly specific, mathematically predictable amount of lost revenue.
It is about fundamentally changing the paradigm of how you interact with data. Data is not a scorecard that you stare at 5 p.m. to prove to yourself that you did your job today. That is looking backward.
Right, that's just vanity.
Data is a living map. It is a tool to help you navigate and understand the complex, messy, delayed human behavior of your customers over a long period of time.
That is the perfect synthesis of Kath Pay's philosophy, actually. If you align your metrics with your true, overarching business objectives,
Right.
if you force yourself to look beyond the immediate gratification of a surface-level click, and if you measure the long-term psychological journey of the consumer, your numbers will completely transform.
They stop being a daily source of anxiety and confusion.
And they become your ultimate strategic advantage. They become the literal blueprint for how you scale the business.
So next time you open your software dashboard, I want you to look at the numbers on the screen, pause, and ask yourself one very hard question. Am I looking at a vanity metric that just strokes my ego, or am I looking at an objective metric that is actually going to grow my business?
That's the million-dollar question.
Now that you know exactly how to measure success and track the real monetary value of an email address, the next logical question is, how do you get those highly valuable people onto your list in the first place? Join us next time as we discover the secrets to growing and retaining a high-performance list and why the permission quest will completely change how you view every single page of your website.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.